Back at it here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, playoff edition. That's right. We finally reached the playoffs, people. Here we go. We will see what the Kansas City Chiefs can do. We'll talk about what they can do against the Miami Dolphins. How do they match up? How dangerous is this banged-up Dolphins team, or is it not at all dangerous because of all the injuries? Will we see something different, something better from Tyreek Hill in this rematch? How big a factor will the weather be? Do the Chiefs end up did they end up with the toughest playoff road? What will we see from this Chiefs offense? Kelce didn't play against Cincinnati. What can we expect from him against these Dolphins? Offensive line shuffle. I think there's actually maybe a little more to that than people are talking about. We'll get into that. How far can the defense carry him? Chris Jones playing all the way into the second half. Is this risky, reckless? We'll get our predictions. It's all coming up right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You're listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
And thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. How about it, fellas? It's the playoff edition. Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, Soren Petro with you as we get ready for a little playoff football, a little frigid playoff football. Jeff, let's start with you. What do we think about the matchup? They get the Dolphins fortuitous with how banged up the Dolphins are, or is Tyreek Hill and Mike McDaniel and Achane and the crew more dangerous than Chiefs fans want to let on?
I will go with the former. I don't see how the Dolphins come in here as beat up as they are and pose a significant threat to the Chiefs. Now, the caveat here is the Chiefs, if they play their C or D plus game, can make it really interesting. But you look at their roster, you look at who they've lost, especially on defense. Xavier Howard's not playing this game. Van Winkel's not playing this game. Jerome Baker's not playing this game. Bradley Chubb's out for the year. Jalen Phillips. They are basically relying on pass rushers who I think all of whom were playing for the Chiefs at some point within the past decade, right? Justin Houston, Emmanuel Ogbah, and Melvin Ingram. So I don't like their odds on defense, but they will get Jalen Waddle back. They will have Raheem Mostert back. But ultimately, this is the chance for the Chiefs to have a reset, a really valuable reset. It's an opportunity for them to start anew, and I would hope they would take advantage of the one guaranteed home game they have and play well. So I like their chances.
Melvin Ingram or the guy who ate Melvin Ingram, one or the other. I'm not sure which. Eric, your thoughts on how this matchup is now that we know who they're going to play?
Yeah, I texted my one friend today that the Dolphins have like an immaculate grid defensive line. You know, like when you go to play that game and you're like, oh, Justin Houston played for the Dolphins and the Colts, and Melvin Ingram played for the Dolphins and the Chiefs, and that's, you know, and you know, the funny part about Sunday night, right, was the Dolphins, obviously that game was close to the Bills, but they got their ass kicked in that game, right? Like the Bills kept the Dolphins in that game. They threw an interception in the end zone to Eli Apple. They threw an interception on 4th and 2 in field goal range. They got tackled to the 1-yard line at the end of the first half. Josh Allen fumbled in the red zone, right? They got tackled on 4th and 1, you know, to try to steal the game. In that game on Sunday night, the Bills outgained the Dolphins 473 to 275 and somehow only won that game by 7. The Dolphins are limping into the playoffs. And then you get into it, and, you know, the one thing that I do get worried about the Chiefs here, the Dolphins are a top 5 team in the NFL in not surrendering runs of 15 yards or more. And in a game like Saturday, where it's going to be cold, the Chiefs aren't going to be able to throw that well. The Dolphins aren't going to be able to throw that well. It's going to be a game of who's going to be able to run the football better. And I do think the Dolphins could be able to be the team that runs the football better. It's the only way that I could say that, because I do think schematically the Dolphins' run defense is actually pretty good.
Yeah. Listen, I think there are paths to a Dolphins victory, but I think you hit upon it. The only thing I would say is, like you mentioned, how the Bills really should have pummeled the Dolphins. And the Chiefs make those kind of sloppy plays too, right?
That's
Like,
what
why
I'm
do we
saying.
think?
Yeah.
Why do we think it's probably not a Mahomes pick in the end zone, but a sack strip fumble, sure. Yeah, I mean, all day. Like that's been a regularity for this team. I mean, that's where I think that if they play a crisp game, I think they win. They were headed towards a solid victory in Miami, up 21-0. That game should have been over, should have been done. Ends up being 21-14. I don't know how much in doubt it was. Chris Jones certainly aided that with a really poorly timed personal foul penalty. But again, sloppy football. That's what they do. That's who they are. So I think they're the better team. But Jeff, any reason to believe with, I don't know, series of backups that you saw anything that makes you think that they're sharp now, or that, hey, this is the wake-up call they've been waiting for. The regular season's boring and now it's time to go because it's postseason?
The Chiefs you're talking about?
Yes.
I don't trust them. It's hard to go 17 games or 16 games, discounting last weekend, and feel like all of a sudden all the things that were wrong about them are going to get right. Ultimately, this is going to come down to how well Mahomes can play, how effective Pacheco can be. Can Rashee Rice raise his game again? Can Travis Kelce, go into the fountain of youth and find some plays that really turn the game? I fully expect them to do something stupid. Like, I don't know what it's going to be, whether it's going to be a key penalty that takes a touchdown off the board, or a big drop, or a fumble, but that's going to come. The question is, how do they overcome that? So, yeah, I mean, it's like I always say, if people show you who they are, you better believe them. And what this team has shown us is that they will be sloppy. They will make mistakes. And that's not going to change when you start playing against better teams. Worst case scenario is you get the game they played against the Raiders a couple weeks ago, when it's just a comedy of errors. And because they did that, they're fully capable of doing it again.
Yeah, I saw, and I'm looking for it here, Eric, the 48 degrees and Tua thing, which is, they say he's never played a game below 48 degrees. Maybe that's true. I know he's never won a game below like 48 or 46 degrees.
Yeah, they were in Buffalo last year.
But he didn't play. Skylar Thompson played.
No, that's right.
In the playoff game.
Right.
And by the way, Mike McDaniel coached his ass off in that playoff game. They almost won the game.
Yeah. Yeah, they were definitely in it for 3+ quarters. And it was kind of like that game. It's kind of like the game we just watched between the Bills and Dolphins, the way it was. It's like, are the Dolphins really going to steal this thing? In the end, no. But coaching matters. I think that's one of the things, like Mike McDaniel's for real, right? Like, we can agree on that he's going to have a game plan. They'll have some gotcha moments. Do we really think that, Tyreek Hill is going to go 8 for 62?
Well, I mean, he's got a hip and a knee, right? Like, he's got some issues. Waddle's hurt. Mostert is kind of, I mean, Achan's the best running back on the, I like, Pacheco a lot, but Achan's the best running back that's going to be on the field. I mean, there's a reason it's only a 4-point spread, right? I mean, the funny part is the total, right? 44. I know it's weather induced, but imagine in the preseason saying the total on a Dolphins Chiefs playoff game would be in the mid to low 40s.
Yeah.
With these two offenses.
No, I agree. I mean, is this a good or bad matchup? Like, the way, I mean, not just the injuries, style of play, like, was 21-0 indicative? Like, and I mean, not a complete whitewashing, but is this a bad matchup for the Dolphins, right? Like, do the Chiefs do the things that, they don't tolerate well, Jeff?
I don't know. Because I think back to that first game, and that was really, I guess, the best opening drive the Chiefs have had all year, right? I mean, I'm discounting like the Bears, people like that who they were just clearly better than. Like, they were crisp, they were down the field, they were making plays. And now I feel like, was that a mirage? Was that just, one of those days where everything fell into place? Because I haven't seen that kind of crispness since that point. So I think they're very similar in terms of how they play and what they want to do. I think the bigger concern is one, how does weather affect special teams? Does Bucker become less of a weapon if it's really windy out, cold days? I mean, he's a really good kicker in all kinds of weather, but if it's windy or blustery, how does that impact his field goal attempts? How does that impact punting and field position? I mean, all these things are going to matter more in a game like this. So what Eric said is right. I mean, having Achane available who didn't play in that first game is a huge thing for them. And I imagine having Jalen Waddle on the field is going to be a huge thing for them because he left that game pretty early, and I think that affected their offense the first time around. But Miami's only avenue to winning this game is really like being super explosive, getting chunk plays, and really having the Chiefs make mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, Armstead missing practice today, it hurts them. Their interior offensive line is really bad with Eichenberg. He's bad. He's not a good football player. Jones. I mean, the one thing that was interesting on Sunday that I heard both within the building, but also like just Sam McDowell, texted me like from the game is like that team was really, really hyped up to see Chris Jones get that sack and that Chris Jones showed more effort in that game than he has all season long.
More excitement.
Does that continue? Right? Like, does he because let's be really honest. Like, and this was everybody wanted to poo-poo this show for being honest about it. But Chris Jones is a inconsistent effort guy, right? And he's a great football player. He's he's a Ring of Honor player, and
maybe a Hall of Famer.
Maybe.
He's in the discussion right now. More work to be done, but he's in the discussion.
He's an inconsistent effort player. He was an inconsistent effort player. So is he 2021 playoffs Chris Jones, or is he 2022 playoffs Chris Jones? Because if he's 2022 playoffs Chris Jones, he's going to eat the Miami Dolphins alive. This interior of the offensive line for the Dolphins is terrible. That's a really good question. Because when it comes to the matchup in this game, Jalen Ramsey is going to shut down Travis Kelce. Point blank. Like that is the match. And so, it's whether or not Rashee Rice can beat up on these corners that are sans Xavier Howard. I think he probably can. And so that matchup favors the Chiefs, but it's going to be a big Rashee Rice game. Can he beat coverage on the outside? And then on the other side of the ball, can Chris Jones win on the interior, and is he motivated enough to do that?
We're probably brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994, whether it's a curb bump, you know what I'm talking about, the stop, the big concrete thing. Yeah, they do that, whether it's the drainage, all of it, complete, top to bottom, everything, all in one contractor, all things parking lot. It's Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com, striping, signs, all of it. It's a Gann Asphalt and Concrete. You said he cranked up the effort. Chris Jones cranked up the effort. I mean, if the ball was in the quarterback's hands, as soon as it went someplace else, he was done. Like, what were you watching that you would call that cranked up the effort? Cranked up the effort to get a sack. But, like, that's still one of the things I'll come back to. He had 29 tackles all year.
Yeah, Tommy doesn't know what sans means. Yeah, there's sans Xavier Howard. He's not in the game. But like, anyway, I mean, like, look, but
sans is French for without.
Yeah, but has he given that much effort in the run? He hasn't given effort in the run game all year, Petro.
Right, but so that's what I'm saying. Like and
he hasn't given that much effort as a pass rusher all year, boys and girls. Like that, he hasn't been that great this year.
I would agree that it's not been a great year, and I think you saw one of the issues that comes with the incentive bonuses, right?
Of course,
he was sack hunting all year. I mean, he was trying to get his money back. I'll say this though: the one most I won't say professional, but maybe adult. But he did say after the game, it was great to get it, but I'm really just getting the money back I lost to my holdout. He finally admitted, when he first came back, he gave this speech like he got himself a raise because the numbers were going to be no big deal. He'll go get those. He got himself a raise. He finally admitted reality of what things were, right? I do think there's something to be said for how much the team got excited. right? Like
Yeah, I like that.
I do too.
This team.
It means they wanted to play for him. They
Correct.
like him. He's one of the guys. Like he may frustrate us watching the game when he loafs it, but they like playing with him. I think that's an encouragement.
And not only that, but you think about what the scene was on the sideline on Christmas Day, and then you also see kind of how it was, and you see it was a little bit better on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, whichever one that was, and then like the morale on this team was rock bottom on Christmas Day, right? And so at least you're starting to see kind of like, can this team really get it together for 6 weeks and win the Super Bowl? You know what I'm saying? And like there was at least a little bit of positivity there towards that aim, because if you would have asked me that question on Christmas Day, I would have said no. Like this team's going to run out of gas. You know, they could put together maybe 1 or 2 games, but it doesn't have what it takes to win the Super Bowl with this kind of effort and attitude. But like when I got the, when I got that, back when I heard that, the sideline was really hype over Chris Jones getting that sack, I was like, maybe there's something to this, right? And Patrick being, very Patrick's attitude towards this team is always A+, I think, right? But like the rest of the team, I think needs to match Patrick, and like maybe they can. And like, I'm more optimistic today than I was last week. I'll just say that.
But don't you think that had some of that joy had to do with playing a game that didn't mean anything? There was no pressure involved, like a drop or a fumble or anything that happened that was negative. You could just blow it off. Whatever. We're already in the playoffs. Like I think that was as much a part of it as how they responded in that moment.
I agree. But that's the I've heard this said about the Chiefs a lot though. Like that's the whole thing about the Chiefs anyway, though. Like there isn't like that was the break last year for the Chiefs, right? When no one expected them to win the Super Bowl because they traded Tyreek Hill. They weren't the favorite going into the year. It was like for the first time in a long time, winning wasn't expected. After they won in 19, like every win was a relief, right? When they beat the Browns in 2020, the playoffs in 2020, it was like an exhale. It was like we were expected to go to the Super Bowl. It wasn't even fun to win. It was sort of expected. Like maybe now as the 3 seed, maybe it's fun to be kind of an underdog. Like they're not favored, right? They're not favored to win the Super Bowl. Like maybe now it's more an enjoyable thing where they can be the hunter finally again, right? Like they were in 2019, as opposed to kind of the hunted as they have been in recent years. Like maybe again, I'm just like looking at it maybe right now with red and gold colored glasses, but I'm like, I'm trying to look for some positivity here.
I don't think it's red and gold talking about the Dolphins. I mean, the long run, there's still a long shot, right? Like I would still put the 49ers, maybe even the Cowboys because of the ease of the road in the NFC. The Bills, they've got the 2 seed. They're going to be at home a couple of rounds, so they've got a better shot of getting them. I guess they got the same shot of getting the Ravens at their place if that's who you end up playing. But they got the Chiefs coming there, and certainly the Baltimore Ravens, who are not just really good. All the analytics, Eric, say that they're really good. Let's talk about that. Is this the toughest road that they could have possibly been handed? Dolphins, Bills, Ravens, and then whoever, probably the Niners out of the NFC.
Yeah, no question. I mean, they would have loved to have seen the Pittsburgh Steelers limping here without TJ Watt, with Mason Rudolph playing quarterback for them, and just feast on that one, for 60 minutes to get the Dolphins. Even though the Dolphins are beat up, I think the Dolphins will play them tough. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. And then having to go to Buffalo, and then knowing that, look, I think there's a good chance the Browns could beat the Ravens. I would pick the Ravens in that game, but you're still looking at having to play in Buffalo or in Baltimore, 2 teams that have a lot, who've been winning. Buffalo hasn't been playing great, but they've been winning, and that matters. Baltimore's been playing great and being at home in that environment. If you've ever been there for a playoff game, it is a tremendous place to be and a hard place to win. And so, yeah, I think just the Chiefs have to play 3 really good games to get to the Super Bowl, as opposed to 2 or 2.5. And that's a big, big factor. I mean, you don't know what could happen this week. They could lose players to injuries. They could barely escape. They could look bad. And again, it's as much as Buffalo has been ugly, Buffalo seems to play better when things are hard.
Buffalo's the 2021 Chiefs. Like,
Yeah.
have we not seen this, right? Like, and the funny thing is the Texans are the 2021 Bengals,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
and ignore the fact that the Ravens are not the 2021 Titans, right? So we're probably not gonna see, that happen, right? And so, but that, yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have the toughest road. Now they're lucking out a little bit, obviously, with the injuries to the Dolphins, and then the weather, I think, does play to Kansas City's strengths in that their defense is much, 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 much better than the Dolphins is. But it is the toughest road in the AFC, and I don't think it's particularly close. It could have been much harder, though, if the Dolphins would have played for a tie the other day. It could have been a lot harder because that would have been Buffalo in the first round for the Kansas City Chiefs. But assuming no ties, it ended up being the hardest one.
I want to go back to something that Jeff said where, like, they're going to have to play 3 really good games, right? Eric just got done talking about how the Bills, slopped around against the Dolphins and kept them in the game. The Chiefs are healthier than the Dolphins. I think the Chiefs are better than the Dolphins. I do think the 3.5-point line is scary as a Chiefs fan. I'd like to see that thing up there at 6.5, and feel a lot better about it. 3.5 says to me that there's a lack of confidence in the Chiefs. They know that they've shot themselves in the foot all year. Well, when it comes to the Bills, are we sure that the Chiefs couldn't have an A game, a C game, and the Bills have a D game and blow themselves up, and then maybe bounce back with an A game against the Ravens and find their way through that way? Like, are we convinced? I think we have a tendency to look at, when you look at from one team's perspective, to always assume the opponent, you're going to get their best. And I don't know that the Bills are much more capable of the Chiefs in putting together 3 really good games. I think they're probably more likely to win without their A game, Jeff. But, like, do we know that the Bills are going to bring a quality effort?
Well, what I'm saying is the Bills can beat the Pittsburgh Steelers without playing a great game. And so that gives them a pass. So that means that they just have to play great in the next round to get to the AFC Championship game. And so I like their odds of doing that because Josh Allen, you watched that game against Miami, that was the full Josh Allen experience, right? It was like Eric said, it's like the 3 turnovers, the bad decision before halftime, and then it's all these amazing plays that get him to 400 yards of total offense and get them the win. But in a 1-game scenario, it's not like a 4-game series in baseball or basketball or 7-game series in baseball and basketball. It's like 1 game. And if you look at Josh Allen's track record in the playoffs, he plays pretty well in January. And so I wouldn't bet on him all of a sudden melting down in that kind of a moment. Whereas the Chiefs, like we talk about them playing their A game, like how many A games have they played this year? What they got, like 3? 2 against like bad teams. I mean, they haven't had an impressive win since Miami. That was a long time ago.
And I don't even know how impressive that win was. That's there. I mean, Eric, is it predictable on Josh Allen? Is there a method to creating the mistakes? Or, I put up the comment, I did relate him to Brett Favre. People call Patrick Mahomes Brett Favre coming out of Texas Tech. Josh Allen's the Brett Favre. I mean, brilliant play, and so good that when he plays well and has a good game, the national analysts can't help but fall over themselves to get to the front of the line to scream, he's the best quarterback. He's the best. He's the best. Yes. And then they likewise can't get to the front of the line fast enough to say how bad he sucks and quote that he has more turnovers than anybody else in football. He is Brett Favre. A little bit different in the sense that he runs more. I get that, but
15
he's
touchdowns.
a complete wild card.
Yeah, I know he's phenomenal. 15 rushing touchdowns, which sets a record. I know it's 17 games, which is so it's not necessarily fair, but I love Josh Allen. I think he's firmly the second best quarterback in the NFL behind Patrick.
By the way, he had 15 in 16 games. He didn't get one against the Dolphins. He already had the 15 going in.
Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
He and Hurts had 15 this year for a new record.
Yeah. By the way, everybody, Dak over Hurts. Everybody gonna apologize to me? Okay. Was
that a thing?
Yeah, everybody was saying I was an idiot for having Dak over Hurts. I mean, you guys weren't because you guys know football, but like everybody.
I wouldn't say you're an idiot, but I'd like to see Dak, pee a drop in the postseason before.
Yeah, but Dak's better than Hurts.
Big a loud victory lap.
We've all seen the evidence now that Dak is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, right?
Yeah, I'll give you that this year. Yeah.
Better passer.
Now,
of the football.
CD Lamb would be offensive player of the year if it weren't for McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill, right? So maybe he's got a little help. But look, Josh Allen, the problem with the Bills is they don't run the football. And and that's me talking, but like the Bills, the opposing defense gives them the run game and they just don't take it. And they put too much on his shoulders, I think. And they don't, and they just get away from stuff that works sometimes. And
Okay,
they put
I don't want to go too deep on the Bills here, but just like overall, like they are susceptible to crapping in their own hat.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like the Bills the Chiefs have this issue too, right? Where like sometimes these teams just they just go a little too far with some of this stuff. And like that's how they make mistakes.
I forgot about that
out there. Yeah. We will do that at the end of the year when we go over our predictions on how well we did. There were a couple of them that didn't necessarily come home. I may have been on Carolina as well, Tommy. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when we get to the end of the season. We're proudly brought to you by our friends at GAN Asphalt and Concrete with free consultations, no commissions, and in-house crews. Every project coming with a written warranty. You can rest assured that your parking lot is taken care of. That means no unnecessary distractions, no liability problems with accidents, people playing bumper cars in the parking lot. Avoid those unnecessary delays and costly expense. Call GAN Asphalt and Concrete today, 816-484-3338, online at ganasphalt.com. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Chiefs offense. What's your impression about where it stands going into this? Did they find an answer in? I'll bring up McCole Hardman. I said this week. I related him to the kid who, you bat lead off in Little League Baseball because he's the fastest kid on the team, and he only bats about 300, but he's going to run till he's out, which means he gets about 2-3 inside the park home runs, about 10 Little League home runs. The guys have a snowball fight with it out there, runs into outs at second and third all the time, goes out to center field, runs a long way, makes an out. You're just totally impressed. But he also stares up at the hot air balloon while 3 hits go right by him because he's not paying attention. Like, is he brain dead sometimes? Yes, clearly. Is he one of the Chiefs' 3 best wide receivers? Yes, clearly he is. Jeff, getting him back, is that a boost to this offense? No, and I acknowledged all his faults, right? Doesn't get on base much, right? No consistency, all those things, right? He will drive you crazy as a manager. He'll drive you crazy as a coach, but he also can make some plays. And the other guys that they've been asking to make plays have had 17 games to do it, 16 games to do it. They didn't do it. He at least looks like he can give them a little bit of a shot in the arm, or am I missing something?
I can't believe we're about to have a conversation talking about McCole Hardman being a boost to this offense. I'm not going to go there.
Wait a minute. You can totally believe we're having the conversation now. Yeah. Have we said this in training camp? No, you'd be like, oh my God, you've lost your mind. Like, how bad could it be before we have to get to that? Well, it's been that bad.
Yeah. It's been, I'm trying to meet you halfway here. I just can't get there with it. I think that if you let McCole Hardman play long enough, you will be as frustrated as we've been with MBS, with Kadarius Toney, with Sky Moore. He will just hurt you in other ways. Maybe he'll catch more balls, but he'll run the wrong routes. He'll be in the wrong spot. I don't think he's even that dangerous as a deep threat, to be honest with you. I think he's fast, but he's not. You
can't track the ball.
Exactly. Yeah, he's not that center fielder you think he is in Little League. And so would he be a better option? Probably. But is that saying much? It's like, I'm not confident in him helping much at all. I think they have to rely on, as Eric said, Rashee Rice turning it up, Pacheco turning it up, and then cobbling together some combination of other guys with Kelce, where that's Watson, Richie James, Hardman, or maybe that's the 3. I guess there's nobody else really to throw in there. So maybe those 3 guys, if you can get decent play out of one of them, then you've got something. But I'm not going to sit here and say I believe McCole Hardman is going to go out and kill it this weekend.
I didn't say kill it.
Yeah.
I just said he adds to the offense.
Yeah.
Does he or does he not make the offense better?
I don't think he does. I think he makes special teams better. I think he's more dangerous as a punt returner. But I mean, what has he done in the last 2 years? Go back to the previous season when he was here. That makes you think, oh my God, I can't wait to see him in this position again. I mean, I can't think of one play. What he has, like 2 catches this year?
He only played 8 games. He had 7 in that game alone on
Okay. I mean, before that throwaway game, yeah.
Yes, he throwaway. Was Derwin James out there? Was Khalil Mack out there?
Okay. All right. They were.
I mean, seriously, Eric, where do you sit on this one? Again, just help them, not star. Help them. Does he help them?
I think that there are legitimate things that McCole Hardman does that can help an offense. I think that he can help the lateral stuff, like the jet sweeps and everything that can help open up the offense. So I think he'll get some run with the Chiefs in the playoffs for sure. I don't want him returning punts though. I don't think he can catch punts.
No, I don't think he tracks. I'd rather have. I don't think Richie James knows where the back line is. I mean, I'm almost like you got to go Michigan and just let every ball drop and roll, right? Like, I mean, seemed to work for them. They couldn't catch
a big punt return this year. I thought he had a big punt return his first game back here, didn't he?
Hardman?
Yeah.
He might have. I mean, he does it. If he can catch it, he's dangerous.
See, you've already forgotten about the good stuff he does. That's what McCole Hardman does. Makes you forget about his good plays.
I agree with you. He doesn't track the ball well, and he's not a big deep threat. Although I think if you send him long, he can pull people with him. Just like you have to run with him, and he's got the speed to open some things up. He won't catch it if you send it down there, but he does catch the ball when you run across. He doesn't go like this to the quarterback afterwards. I mean, he caught the ball, and I that's more than you get with Kadarius Toney and MVS.
Yeah. I think Eric kind of waffled on this. Like, was it a yes or no? Do you believe what Soren is saying?
I think that, okay. What do you guys, let me back up. What do you guys think of MVS literally getting no snaps and no reps the other day?
I am terrified that it means they actually think he's still a part of the equation. He's either gone to the Kadarius Toney, we're done with your shit, get out of here age, which is where I think they are with Kadarius Toney. We're gonna find out. Watch MVS and Kadarius Toney line up on the first play of the game against the Dolphins. But he either went there or they're like, no, he's really important. He blocks. He's going to come through. Remember what he did against the Bengals. Like, I think the Chiefs have been rewarded. Mitchell Schwartz, we talked about it last week. They never give up on a guy. They always keep coaching him up. I mean, well, that's their biggest flaw too, right? And I'm sorry. I've seen more out of McCole Hardman.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. Like, I worry that we're going to see 6 snaps out of Hardman and MVS is going to get 70 snaps. And, like, this is all moot, right?
Yeah, that's fair. So who do you think they will play, Eric?
I think they're going to play MVS, and I think it's going to be a mistake.
Yeah.
MVS and Rashee Rice and who else?
So I think there are 3 wide receivers in the playoffs will be Rashee Rice, Justin Watson, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
So no Richie James.
And no Richie James.
Wow. I actually like Richie James more than the other guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think Richie James will play like 12 snaps like he did against the Bengals. And I think like in McCole Hardman will play like 6, and then that'll be the wide receiver rotation. And like, yeah, that'll be the wide receiver rotation. They'll play, Rice will play like 60, MVS will play like 50, and Watson will play 40. That'll be, kind of the wide receiver. I'd love to be wrong.
Well, I'll tell you what it should be. Rashee Rice should play the most. And then a combination of McCole Hardman, Justin Watson, and Richie James. And anybody else who plays wide receiver should only be on the field if one of them is hurt.
Well, I'd go to more 2 tight ends, to be honest with you. Give Eric Noah Gray a little more love.
I mean, I know that like people will like laugh at this, but like one of the biggest missing pieces on the Chiefs right now is Jody Fortson.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Like they were
McKinnon
incredibly efficient out of 3 tight ends last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think they miss it for sure. I think they miss it in the red zone. You know, they weren't settling for field goals all day against Cincinnati because they got it all figured out as they get closer. I mean, I think they do. But like, listen, isn't he another basketball convert, or was he just a small school wideout? They were trying to make into a tight end.
I actually don't think Jody Fortson, the guy, matters. I think that the type matters. Like, yeah, he made a great catch against San Diego. I don't like, but Jody Fortson who himself doesn't matter. It's that he's not Blake Bell. Like the fact that Jody Fortson could run, like it's the Marquez Valdes-Scantling argument, but like one step further. It's the fact that they had a tight end who could run down the field faster than Blake Bell that actually mattered. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And it's time for them to go get a real tight end. Okay. I mean,
Noah Gray's a real tight end.
I'm fine with Noah Gray for his role, you know, but you need, what'd you say? Blake Bell's a real tight end?
No, Noah Gray's a real tight end.
I know. I agree. I agree with that, but it's time for them to start looking for the every down guy. And I don't think that's Noah Gray. I think Noah Gray's a little feature piece.
Noah Gray's a good tight end too. He'll probably leave in free agency because he's shown some flashes, but yeah.
Well, I mean, Kelce didn't play against the Dolphins. What do you expect to get, or play against the Bengals? What do you expect against the Dolphins from him? Jeff, I mean, do you think he's going to have a big game?
Kelce? No. I think, like Eric said, I think Jalen Ramsey shadows him. Look, every defense that they play against, the first thing they want to do is take away Travis Kelce. I mean, so he hasn't scored a touchdown in what 10 weeks or something like that, some crazy number. It's like 8 or 9 weeks. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be limited. They're going to double him. They're going to put their best defender on him. They're going to make sure he doesn't create opportunities for other people. And he's not at a point in his career anymore where he can overcome that kind of stuff. So I'm not anticipating him going out there and doing 10 for 150 and 3 touchdowns. I think it's going to be a struggle for him.
Okay. Eric, what do you think Kelce does?
Yeah, it's going to be I know he had a good game he had one good play against Ramsey last year when they played that kind of that skeleton version of the Rams at Arrowhead. But I mean, Ramsey's a heck of a player in that star role, right? So, I don't think it's much. I think, probably 3 catches, 30 yards, something like that, right? It really is going to be a Rashee Rice game, and they'll have to get something out of the backfield and Rice. Yeah.
Now I want to make a point real quick about the 2 tight end formation. I know some people are saying Noah Gray sucks. The whole point about playing 2 tight ends is you're creating more advantage with mismatches through formations. So you're having to put bigger personnel on the field to match up with tight ends. This team does not scare you when they're going to 3-4 empty backfield sets. They just don't.
Yeah, because they're no threat to run the ball that way.
Yeah.
And they're no threat to beat you with those wide receivers.
Yeah.
At least with Noah Gray, you might keep a couple extra big people on the field and then be able to beat them in the passing game.
Yeah. Or have Pacheco be more of a factor.
Yeah. Yeah, at least a push and pester blocker that can get him going. I'm with you. I'd like to see more 2 tight ends, but I do think that this, and we'll talk more about it in the offseason, but they've spent a lot of time, energy, effort, and resources on spicing up the defense. And what's kind of scary if you're a Chiefs fan looking over the horizon is they need to spend a lot of time, energy, and resources on the offense, but they're going to lose a lot of defense, right? It's all culminated in this year. And I don't know that it's going to come together with that. Is this defense something that how much can the defense carry them, Eric?
I think, in the modern NFL, like in this 1 year, I think it can carry them a lot, right? I mean, let's think about their path. This week, defense can win this game, right? This particular week in the cold against a kind of mid-tier quarterback who's not a Hall of Famer, they can win with defense this week. Next week, it's going to be tough if it's Buffalo, right? For sure. And Pittsburgh's not beating Buffalo. Let's be adults here. So next week's going to be tough, but Buffalo steps on their own junk all the time. So if their defense can actually like make some plays and so that, yeah, next week's going to be tough. The Ravens are a team that's a defense first team. Like, I know Lamar's played really well, but that's a defense first team. So the way the Chiefs are constructed, they can win that game with their defense. In the Super Bowl, if it's the 49ers, that's another game where the way the Chiefs are constructed. Yeah. So in this one particular year, having a great defense and the best player in the world is your quarterback might do the trick. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not saying it's the way that you want to win every single year, but I think that this one particular year, this might be a decent way to go about it.
Jeff, I think the defense will keep them around in games, will give them the opportunity. Kind of like Washington late in the third quarter was within 7, right? There they were, but offensively they couldn't get it done. Like, I think that might be the problem for the Chiefs. Like, the defense keeps them there. It's right there. Go take it from the Bills. Go take it. But if Josh Allen doesn't give it to them, I don't know that they'll get it done. That's how I see the defense. It will keep them there. But the thing we've talked about, every game they lose close. They've got a chance, except for the Bronco loss. They got a chance, and the offense doesn't make the play. Like, did you see? We talked about turnovers last week, takeaways last week. We didn't see that. We didn't see them all of a sudden. We saw one with Edwards with the scoop and score, right? But like, do we think the avalanche of takeaways is coming still?
I don't see it happening, but they need it to happen for this defense to carry them. I mean, this defense is very good at scoring, keeping people down, second in the league in points allowed and second in the league in yards allowed. But if you really want to have your defense carry, you got to turn people over. And they've got 17 takeaways all season long. That's not enough. And you saw what that turnover meant last week in that win. You saw what that turnover in the Dolphins game back in whatever it was, October, what it meant there. It was a difference there. You look at the Ravens, look at the Bills. The Bills haven't given up more than 22 points in the last 5 games. And so, and what you really don't want to have, which going back to my initial point about the offense, you can't have your offense doing things that create problems for your defense. You can't have your offense giving up defensive touchdowns or giving the ball away with short fields. That's where they've gotten killed in a lot of these games. They just haven't, like you said, they haven't had the support from the offense. So I think the defense will play well because they played well all year long. And it's been a good defense, a lot of pride over there. It was a travesty that L'Jarius Steed didn't make the Pro Bowl. They've got guys who can cover and blitz and pressure. I don't know what we'll see from Chris Jones. That is a big question mark here. I'll be honest with you. I think there will be some, is he playing for next year or is he going to be all in for this? I can't say I'm confident in that right now, but I think everybody else will be ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, I think defensively, they have to come up with the takeaways. I don't know where that's going to come from. I think the Bills are susceptible to just doing it, to just giving it to them. I do think, let's talk about the cold for a second here, Eric, because like the weather, Tua does not have the arm that cuts through a wind. And it's not only supposed to be cold, it's supposed to be windy. Is that, the Chiefs did a good job of harassing him, particularly for the first 2.5 quarters in the game in Germany. Like, is that the difference in this game? Is that a reason to believe that the Dolphins are really going to struggle to put points on the board? Defense plus bad weather and win with a quarterback that doesn't have a cannon for an arm?
Yeah, I just want to go, though, back to 2022. I believe it was week 16. Maybe it was week 17. There was that cold game in Buffalo that the Bills beat the Dolphins, where Tua, they did put up points. And they put up points that was 29-32. Tua was 17 of 30 for 234, 2 touchdowns. Raheem Mostert, 17 for 136, 8 yards a carry. Salvin Ahmed from Washington, right? 6 for 43, 7.2 a carry and a touchdown. Like, that's the way they'll beat the Chiefs in this weather, is to run the football, because they're explosive running the football. And the Chiefs, as we know, give up a lot of they're 30th in EPA allowed per rush. So that's really like the Chiefs got to be able to play in heavy defensive formations. Leo Chanel, Derek Nottie, Pinnell's, when Pinnell's in there, they've done better because, one of the worst kept secrets on this team is that Derek Nottie's terrible. So they have to get into
not from a lack of you.
They
have to get into heavy personnel defensively and be able to stop the run. If they can, I don't see Tua beating them.
I want to talk about the offensive line. Andy Reid said after the game that the plan was for the interior three to rotate at the right guard spot. They had Caliendo at left guard. They had Allegretti at center. And then because they only have 9 offensive linemen on the roster, only 8 were healthy because of Donovan Smith being out, that he was going to have all 3. That's why you saw Creed Humphrey at guard. Okay? I don't think we were going to see Joe Thuney at left tackle until Jawan Taylor went down, right? Like Morris went down, Taylor went down. So they did what they did against the Bengals last year. They kicked Joe Thuney out there. Here's my question for you. Was Creed Humphrey, were they getting a look at Nick Allegretti at center, Jeff? He's not signed for next year. And I don't really think it's for a playoff run. I think you'll see everybody back there. But Creed Humphrey is not a good snapper of the ball. A secret. That's a secret, Eric. I think – Derek Nottie on roller skates, is a disco fan's dream, right? They've seen that a lot of times. But Creed Humphrey, the rest of the league never talks about how many times he's rolling the ball back to Mahomes, how many times Mahomes having to reach over and catch it, look down, take his eyes off it. I was talking to Trent Green this week. I talk to him every Monday on the program, and he's like, he knew right where I was going, and he's not going to throw anybody under the bus, but he's like, yeah, it really takes you out of your rhythm. I mean, he did offer that, and he wasn't guarded. He talked about how great Creed is as a ball, and he is. Once the ball's away, he's really good. He really kind of sucks at snapping the football. Do you think there was an element of let's take a look at what this looks like, and could we see it in the playoff game?
I hadn't thought about that. And it would be a really risky move to take at this time of year. With that in mind, how would the offensive line shake out? What would you think who would move out of guard?
So here's be the week to do it though, because the Dolphins defensive line is so banged up and so ass that if you did Thuney, Humphrey, Allegretti, Trey Smith, and Jawan Taylor, if you did those 5 this week and just tried it out, and if it sucked, it's probably not going to do that much damage. Does that work?
Thuney at left tackle.
Listen, I don't think Thuney at left tackle was part of the plan. I think that was just necessity. But we got to see it again, and it didn't look bad. And frankly, Donovan Smith coming back, a rusty Donovan Smith, and the talk is that he's progressing, like he's going to be back. I frankly will take Donovan Smith over Wanya Morris because I think Wanya Morris has been exposed. And so I'll take that. But, don't coaches sit and constantly say, put your best 5 out there? Yeah, I mentioned it yesterday, Eric. You just hit upon it. I think the Chiefs' best 5. Maybe it's not what everybody wants. I don't think Creed Humphrey wants to play guard. I think he wants to play center. I don't think Thuney wants to play tackle. I think he wants to play guard. But if we put egos aside, isn't the best 5 Thuney, Humphrey, Allegretti? The question is Allegretti, Smith, and Taylor. Isn't that the best 5?
I don't. Maybe I'm cynical about this. I feel like this whole idea of Joe Thuney at left tackle, which has been bandied about for a couple of years now, is like a dream. It's like he's played a half there in emergency situations, and people act like this guy is like they got Joe Thomas out there now. We're just hiding him at left guard. It's just.
But he played it better than Wanya Morris. So, I'm not nominating him to go in for Jonathan Ogden. I'm nominating him to go in for Wanya Morris.
Well, look, Eric's right. Doing it against Miami would be the best time to do it because you're not going to pay a heavy price for it. But I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I'll put it that way. I'm not totally dismissing it. But I can see where you're going with it, that, if you're living in the shotgun the way the Chiefs do, you better have somebody who can't be a liability. I mean, snaps. I get that part of it.
Back there, man.
Yeah.
What's that?
He floats it back there. It's bad.
The Humphrey snaps are bad, right?
Yeah, they're awful. Like, it's
Yes.
noticeable. Like, my nephew can see it during Christmas.
I really think that there was more than just, well, we got to split this up so everybody gets a third. I think it was a little bit of, let's take a look at this, guys. What do we have here? Again, Nick Allegretti's not signed for next year, but he's playing down around the league minimum. You could get him signed. They clearly like him. They kept him around. Like, if they didn't think there was anything there, they'd have let him go and tried somebody else's cast off. That's what every team does. We had this guy rated real high on our board. Let's get him in and let him work with our coaches. They kept Allegretti because they like him to a degree. I don't know. I think Donovan Smith will be back. And I think Andy Reid, despite his, throwing the ball, seeming like he's real, balls to the wall, I think he's fairly conservative. And so I think Donovan Smith will be at left tackle and the rest of the line will be what it is. But I think it'll be real interesting to see what happens if Donovan Smith goes down. And I don't even know Wanya Morris is going to make it back for the game, but I think it'll be, and Donovan Smith goes down a lot. Not just the games he misses. Yeah. He tends to come out for 2, 4, 5, 10 plays. We're going to see probably – you're not going to – I'll say this. If they play 4 games, every snap at left tackle is not going to be taken by Donovan Smith. I guarantee that.
Yeah. That's probably a more problematic area as they go deeper into the playoffs in receiver. Like the tackle, the protection, the tackle situation is definitely going to be a worrisome deal for them.
All right, prediction time. Eric, lead us off. What do you got?
Yeah. My model actually, spit out Chiefs by 3. I think, given the injuries and stuff, I think you got to push it out. I mean, I know a lot of sharper bettors have bet the Chiefs out to 4. So I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic. Chiefs 24, Dolphins 19. Let's go with that.
Okay. Chiefs 24-19. Jeff.
I think the weather muddles the game up. I think Chiefs are going to make a couple turnovers. I think the Dolphins are going to be sloppy at times, but get a couple big plays. I'll go 21-20 Chiefs.
First of all, I love this from Ryan. Where'd it go? Hang on, the thing jumped on me. How's a 6'4" guy only appear in the lower 1/3 of the screen? I think he's talking to you, Eric. Because he leans back in his chair and he has no posture.
That's right.
I'll go 23-13 Chiefs.
Wow.
I'll go 23-13.
I think you called like for a double-digit win, 15 to 17 games this year.
I mean, picking it right at the spread's boring. So, I'll go 23-13. 23-13. Give me a blowout. I want to. Whiskey.
Is it a blowout?
He says, give me a blowout prediction. I can't quite go there. I think the Dolphins are really going to struggle to score. And I think the Chiefs will struggle to score to a degree, but I think they're going to go up and down the field. So
I think this could be a really big letdown.
I probably go more like 19-10.
Yeah. I think this could be a big letdown game for the Dolphins, right? You think about, you had a 3-game lead in the division with 5 to go. You had a home game against your rival, right? Everybody forgets that the Dolphins and Bills are a rivalry because the Patriots had that division for 20 straight years, right? Like, and you lose that game. Now you got to go on the road, play in cold weather. Like, it could be a big letdown spot for the Dolphins, right? And like to the degree that exists, it could be a big letdown spot. The problem is the Chiefs have been a letdown all year.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, we've got Noah John calling for the Dolphins 14-10. And this one has to be mentioned. Willie says, those Dolphins units always look candy ass in this weather.
Mm-hmm.
I will point out.
Wow.
The Chiefs have never beaten the Dolphins in the playoffs. The Dolphins are 3-0 against the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Does that change your mind?
Well, Joe Montana versus Dan Marino has really nothing to do with, or Steve DeBerg versus Dan Marino kind of has nothing to do with what we're going to see.
Podolak.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. All right. That's going to do it for us. Remember, we're brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, the best nationally recognized full service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Every one of their projects comes with a written warranty. You can rest assured you're getting absolutely the best when you go with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot. Make sure you tell them you heard about them here on the Red, Gold, and Bold. It is for my distinct pleasure to say thank you very much for joining us here. For Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, I'm Soren Petro. We will talk to you next week, one way or another, and break down what happened in this game between the Chiefs and Dolphins.